The mid-19th century was a period of radical transformation for the city of Paris. As the camera pans across sweeping views of the ancient cityscape, we travel back in time to the bustling streets of 1850s Paris during the reign of Napoleon III. This was an era of great momentum, as Baron Haussmann overhauled the city on a massive scale, laying out the famous boulevards and beautifying the parks that dominate Paris as we know it today. It was also a time that saw the city firmly established as the fashion capital of the world. As we glimpse ladies in sweeping crinoline gowns promenading down the avenues, we enter the salons and ateliers where couturiers were dictating new styles each season. Alongside setting trends in fashion, Paris gained recognition for its advancements in the arts and culture. We get a peek inside the decadent world of Parisian society, the shimmering ballrooms, the opening nights at the opera, and the cafes where intellectuals gathered to discuss new ideas that were changing the world. As a side note, if Paris is in your plans, we have links in the description to some of the best tours in the city. Take a look if you're interested. The City of Light was attracting innovators in every field, writers and painters that became the luminaries of France's cultural legacy. But the shadows in the alleyways also revealed the poverty and strife that afflicted much of the working population. As we contrast the fashionable nobility and rising bourgeoisie with the destitute underworld, we gain insight into the paradoxes of this fascinating period, when both splendor and misery existed side by side on Parisian streets. So let's step back in time to mid-19th century Paris, where old-world charm meets modern energy in the midst of a total transformation. The scene is set to explore an era and city endlessly portrayed in literature and art. Yet its realities far exceed any imagination of its seductive charm. This is Paris, the Paris of Napoleon III and Haussmann. Fashion in 1850s Paris was a showcase of luxury, excess, and ever-evolving taste. As we stroll the arcades of the Palais Royal, mannequins model the flouncy crinoline gowns that defied narrow doorways. Ladies spared no expense on voluminous dresses with tiny waists cinched tight by corsets. As wide skirts swung across the parks and boulevards, they revealed layers of contrasting fabrics, lace accents, and trim embellishments. This was the era when Charles Frederick Worth pioneered haute couture, exclusive custom-fitted garments for elite clientele bearing his signature labels. We glimpse Worth's fashion house with rail upon rail of textiles being transformed into delicate confections designed to meet the demands du jour. Inspiration was often taken from romantic ballerinas and courtiers of centuries past. Silhouettes featured off-the-shoulder necklines or long, cuffed sleeves. Day dresses and visiting gowns were constructed differently than dramatic evening wear. Headwear ranged from floral caps to elaborate feathered creations. Parisian socialites aimed to outshine each other, incorporating birds, fruits, ribbons, and even taxidermy elements into their hats and chapeaux. Many donned cherished family heirlooms like cameos or pearls for embellishment. This was an age when apparel conveyed status and personal style as explicitly as the grandeur of one's home or carriage. Paris led a competitive culture of using fashion to display taste, wealth, and social standing for an international clientele of nobility hungering for the latest trends. The cafes and cabarets of Montmartre were a hive of artistic and literary talent in the 1850s. At Le Chat Noir, we might have encountered the poets Charles Baudelaire brooding over a glass of absinthe, or Gustave Flaubert scrawling notes that would become his masterpiece, Madam Bovary. For visual arts, the Paris Salon was the ultimate tastemaker, where thousands viewed exhibits by Eugène Delacroix, Jean-Auguste Dominique Ingres, and emerging impressionists like Eduard Manet. This was an era when masterpieces that would reshape movements were created behind the doors of Parisian studios. We glimpsed the painter Gustave Courbet, shocking bourgeois audiences with gritty realism. Composers like Georges Bizet and Charles Gounod were moved to create operas portraying troubled heroines like Carmen and Faust. Daring new architecture broke ground as iron and glass transformed possibilities for train stations and exhibition halls, pioneering designs for the modern city. Yet some struggled for acceptance. We visit the notorious group of rebels known as Les Miserables, living in poverty as they aim to overturn academism with provocative new styles. Some consider this the birth of avant-garde modern art. Here we find early works by Eduard Manet, Claude Monet, Berthe Morisot, and Pierre-Auguste Renoir. Though ridiculed by critics, they persevered, relocating their independent exhibit to the suburb of Asnières after being barred from the Salon. Their loose brushwork and everyday subjects would plant the seeds for Impressionism, the iconic Parisian style the world associates with scenes like Renoir's shimmering dances along the Seine. Yet in the 1850s, these revolutionaries faced bitter opposition. We witness how the vibrant web of artists, writers and visionaries both shaped and struggled against the establishments of power in mid-19th century Paris. Daily existence in Paris during this dynamic era varied enormously between the lavish lifestyles of high society and the abject poverty endured by the lower classes. As the bourgeoisie and regime of Napoleon III transformed the urban landscape with grand boulevards and neoclassical facades, fashionable districts emerged around the Champs-Élysées, populated by elegant hotels, particuliers, and new apartment blocks. The wealthy floated between dazzling cafes and brasseries decked out in silk fineries or on promenades inside chic covered passageways lined with luxury boutiques selling perfumes, hats, confectionery and books. At upscale restaurants like the Rocher de Cancale or Café Anglais, Parisian aristocrats mingled with tourists over elaborate 12-course dinners and rare imported wines, followed by attendance at the opera, theatre or debutante balls in glittering Petit Palais. Leisure escapes meant weekends at seaside resorts or horse racing at Longchamps. Yet a short walk exposed the rampant poverty and disease afflicting many working-class Parisians, crammed into unsanitary slum quarters of the city centre. They survived off meagre rations of bread, onions and little meat inside dark, cramped tenements with unreliable water supply. Many took to the streets as peddlers or scavengers, combing the trash heaps and sewers for anything to exchange for basic necessities. During Baron Haussmann's major urban renewal projects, many poor residents were evicted or forced to relocate as labyrinth alleys were demolished, exacerbating displacement and homelessness as rents increased. Class tensions reached boiling point during violent riots and attempted uprisings against miserable labor conditions in overcrowded factories and disillusionment over political corruption, failing to create greater equality in Parisian society. Contradictions between splendor and destitution had split 1850s Paris into two worlds. As we reach the close of this glimpse into transformational 1850s Paris, we can reflect on the enduring legacy of this period in propelling Paris into its status as an iconic global cultural capital. Though the era had paradoxes of simultaneous splendor and misery, the momentum of artistic innovation, architectural renewal, and industrialization paved the way for Paris as we envision it today. The citywide overhaul spearheaded by Baron Haussmann created the blueprint of the modern Paris we recognize. Sweeping tree-lined boulevards, glittering shopfronts, lush public gardens, uniform facades and monumental bridges that Haussmann orchestrated continue to dominate the metropolis. Paris also swiftly became synonymous with luxury goods, haute cuisine, and setting universal styles, as Charles Worth perfected a couture tradition still revered worldwide. The seeds for artistic movements like Impressionism were planted in rebellious 1850s Paris despite facing immense criticism at their genesis. The bohemian spirit drawing radicals, dreamers and progressive thinkers to Parisian cabarets and galleries did not fade. It fueled a dazzling fin de siècle Belle Époque era and the continued aura of Paris as a hub for the creative avant-garde. So, as we are transported back to the present day, we can better appreciate how this period paved the way for Paris as more than Europe's first modernized capital. The cultural legacy, sensuality and charm we idolize as quintessentially Parisian underwent much of their development in the vast metamorphosis of 1850s Paris under Napoleon III, and his visionary urban planner, Baron Haussmann. Their combined ambitions created the enduring phenomenon that is Paris, the famed epicenter of style, romance, and joie de vivre. By the way, for any prospective Paris visitors, we've handpicked what we think are the can't-miss tours and included links below to help make your planning easier.